Welcome to episode 91 of Broad Street Hustle. For you YouTube people, you don't have to adjust your dial. I don't have the typical Campos hoodie on. Got a jersey. It's something I'm trying out. Maybe get a sponsor from, Nike, Reebok. We'll see what happens. Episode 91, we have an action-packed show, so I'm going to get right into it. Jason Sayeda.
Hey, Tom. What's going on?
What's up? Chalky.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And Christopher. Jason, you had a name. What was the name?
Joe.
Oh, that's right. Christopher Joe Public Meeker.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump right into it. First, I just thought of something. We should touch on the 70-point game by Embiid. Anybody? Jason, you want to give your thoughts quickly?
It's crazy. Listen, the guy played 36 minutes. If he played 40 minutes, I think he could have challenged Kobe's 81. If you look at the list of guys who scored 70 or more,
yeah, there was it Wilt was like 53 minutes in one of the games or something like that?
It's triple OT game, yeah.
What's the name? Mitchell was like 51 minutes. The only ones that rivaled Embiid were Lillard was 39, but they were trying to prove a point with him in that game because he was leaving, so they were just giving him the ball on every trip down the floor the whole game.
And I'm sure he had a ton of threes in that game, too, where Embiid had one.
David Robinson, they were going for the scoring title for him. It was the last game of the year, so that's why, his was that. I think Booker, and Chalk, you might remember this. Was Booker going for a scoring title also when he did his?
I don't remember that, no. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Listen, it's still impressive, but, kind of a little corny. But, 70 points. What could you say?
Yeah, the Sixers were feeding him in the fourth quarter, when he got in, back in the game. But you knew from the first quarter that it was going to be, you could see it trending to like a historic game.
Chalky and I were talking, and I was like, damn, why didn't I bet Embiid's over in this game? He's going to try and do something against Wembanyama. You know what I mean? And then Popovich talked shit about him or something. Didn't he say they're going to hammer him the whole game or something?
Yeah, but I thought that was like tongue-in-cheek, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I think he said something sarcastic about how they're going to stop him, but he was like, we can't stop him, or something like that.
Whatever, yeah.
But you knew right away when he was going down low and crashing for boards, you knew there was like you said, something going to happen. Chalky?
Yeah, no, you figured with the whole, Wemby coming in first time, Embiid would be looking to have a big game. I actually offered Jason a chance to go to the game, but neither of us ended up there. So we were texting during the game.
Didn't you offer me the last time he scored 60 or 59?
Yeah.
Weren't we supposed to go to
It's possible. It's possible.
Just let us know the next time you pass up tickets.
I know.
Yeah. Well, but it was funny too because they were down 15-2 to start the game or something. So you're like, this ain't going to be their night. And last night turned to be more that game. But the way he was scoring, he was getting down low and getting on the bucket instead of, he made 1 3, only took 2. And, he was taking some outside shots, but it was just he was just hitting those elbow jump shots. And he got to the line 20 something times. But it was something else. And then I think it was towards the end of the game, it started getting close, and everybody went to him, and then he had a nice dump off to who was it? He dumped it off to, was it Oubre maybe, who had got a layup or so. Yeah. It wasn't like he was trying to gun it to get to 70, but obviously he wanted the ball every time down. So it's only happened a handful of times in NBA history, so no matter what the circumstances are, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and that elbow shot that you said, that's kind of why his game this year has been elevated.
He doesn't miss.
And if somebody challenges him, he blows by them. Right. So it's he knows when to take it, when to blow by him, and
he's got to be 60% from there.
That
at minimum.
Yeah, I say more.
Minimum.
And that's why. Yeah. Meeker, your thoughts quickly?
Yeah, I was just going to say that shot has just been unguardable this year. And I even told Jason, unfortunately, I turned it off midway through the third. I think he had 42, 43, and I knew okay, he's going to get 50. He'll probably rest him, but the game was close. So because the game was close, they kept him playing. and which is why he got there. But what is he also 22 or 21 of 22 from the line?
Missed two.
I think 21 to 23.
21 of 23. That's amazing. Like if that guy's shooting 85% from the line, I mean, I don't know how you can stop him. I mean, it's just an impressive display.
Yeah, and I remember when he came in, as you start developing, that was like the comparison with Wilt is he can score like Wilt, but he shoots 80 whatever percent from the line, where Wilt shot 45% or whatever it was from the line. So he can try to go after kind of all his records at one point. All right, let's move on. Vic Fangio is the Eagles' new defense coordinator. Chalky, thoughts?
I mean, I didn't think they would be able to get him this year because Miami they played pretty well until the end when a bunch of their guys got hurt. But yeah, like I said, if it was up to them, they would have brought him in when they had the vacancy last year. They've had guys that have run the Vic Fangio defense, and now Vic Fangio is going to run the Vic Fangio defense. But they're going to have to get some better players to run the defense, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what they try to do in the free agent market. But you need at least one decent player added to all three lines of the defense, if not more. But he's the guy that runs runs the defense that you like. And I was actually surprised to see some of the names, like when Meeker mentioned Rivera, I was like, but then Rivera wound up interviewing for the job. So I figured once I saw that, I was like, all right, they want somebody who's established. And then it was like Fangio wasn't even mentioned until it was like, yep, they parted ways, and now he's coming here. So yeah, I mean, it's probably about as good of a pickup as they're going to get, but they're going to need some better players to go with it.
Yeah, it seemed like they were mutually agreed, like the Dolphins and Fangio.
Yeah,
it seemed like Fangio already had something in place with the Eagles and went to.
That's
Miami.
why he went to Miami. Yeah, I didn't said let me out of it.
But he's that guy that we were saying like Sirianni needs or the offense needs, where he turns it over to him. He doesn't have to get involved. He runs everything. And they even mentioned Staley might join him in some capacity. So
yeah, because he was under him before. Yeah.
So Meeker, thoughts?
Not much more. I mean, they're playing, like Chalky was saying, they're playing the defense already that he plays. But the emphasis is, on defensive backs playing like that quarter coverage defense. And they don't have the guys right now. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know. I don't really trust their defensive backs. And, this free agency, I think, is going to be key for it to turn around that quickly. But I mean, look, they wanted a guy with experience, a guy they had a connection to, a guy they can trust, and they got him. So it's a good move for the Eagles for sure.
Jason?
Yeah, it's always good to get like a former head coach to come in, just like their coordinator when they won the Super Bowl.
Schwartz.
Schwartz. Guys like that who at least have like the experience of everything, and then they step back.
It seems like on the defensive side you get away with that, where the better coordinators are the ex-head coaches, but offensively it's
because they
there's
never work
up-and-comers.
out, rarely work out as head coaches. He's going to be more aggressive. He's going to blitz more and all, but you like Chalky said, I mean, you need personnel too. Bobby Flay, you hand him beaks and lips, he's not going to make a good chicken salad sandwich. So, Roseman's got to do better than he did last year.
What was the story behind them letting him go in Miami?
He had a disagreement. McDaniel and him didn't get along. There was an issue there.
Yeah, there was some players that came out. It seems like
And the players
there's
didn't
stuff
like him.
as he's gotten older. He's been a little more difficult to, work with. But Schwartz had that kind of persona as well. So I mean, sometimes on the defense, you want a guy that's like, kind of a curmudgeon, if you want to say. The one thing I'm encouraged is that, and Chalky, they got better as the season went on. They weren't great. They had a lot of injuries, but they got better. They got guys back, but they got better, and that's something that the Eagles haven't, in past years with coordinators, is they continued down a path and got worse, if anything. So the fact that maybe he can coach up players or young players, I'm encouraged by. So, I mean, what are you going to say? It's not a bad move. It's better than Ron Rivera or I forget who else they were.
Rivera probably would have been good too.
I would have been fine
But
with
was
Rivera,
he ever a
but
defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was Bears and Chargers.
Cheers.
After he left the Eagles?
He was the Bears D coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl under Lovey, and then I think he went out to Chargers for a year or two before getting the Carolina job.
All right. Speaking of coaches, Meeker, I'll let you take this because you love talking coaches. A couple hires, but there's a big name that's still out. Well, a couple names that are still out there: Belichick, Carroll, Vrabel. You know who I don't even know who's left to fill Seattle. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I saw First Take today, and Ryan Clark was on saying that just because you are the I mean,
Don't
he
want-
is who he is,
yeah,
but
yeah.
just because, but he made some sense in saying what he said, which was just because you are the best coach of all time does not mean you're the best fit for a team today in today's NFL with whatever personnel you might have and whatever philosophy you have. And I just think that I don't know that I would have done what Atlanta did in hiring Raheem Morris. Of course, he's got connections with Atlanta, so there's something there for that. But I mean, he's a young coach. They can grow with him. He's going to be there for a while. I just kind of think that some of these executives believe that not the game has passed Belichick by, but that he's there for more of a short-term situation where you're not really going to grow with him, and he wants full control. And if these executives don't want to give him that kind of control, especially what his record looks like without Tom Brady, then maybe they feel like he's just not the best right now. Maybe he's the best of all time, but he's not the best right now. And I don't know why Vrabel hasn't gotten a sniff yet, but maybe he's going to take a year off and see what the landscape looks like and try it next year.
Yeah, I would imagine. Who's left? Seattle?
Seattle, but they're supposed to hire Quinn.
Seattle and
I'm still not
Washington.
convinced in
I mean,
Washington, but they're supposed to hire Ben Johnson.
So
Yeah.
I was going to say, Johnson's got to be going somewhere.
I think Seattle might be looking at one of the coordinators for the team still around too. I just think Quinn they would have gotten him already, and Quinn's interviewed for a couple different jobs. So not that he won't get it, but I'm starting to wonder a little bit.
I mean, are we convinced that Buffalo's not going to fire McDermott?
I feel like, wouldn't they have done it?
I think that I think they would have at this point, yeah. But
I mean, if they thought Belichick was going somewhere already, maybe now that they see he's not, they're
not. I mean, it's not impossible.
All right.
Not
And
impossible. But
Tennessee
be-
hired the Cincinnati coordinator,
Canals.
right?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tampa coordinator went to Carolina, I think.
What was his name?
Canella?
Corrales or
Callahan.
Corrales to
went
Tampa.
And then Canellas or whatever went.
Canales went to Carolina.
I honestly, I watched the two Eagles games versus Tampa, and like one or two. I don't remember them ever saying the offensive coordinator's name once. So when they were like, "Oh, they hired," Tampa, and I'm like,
I remember them saying he was too conservative.
Yeah.
But
I
they
was like,
showed him a lot. He was
Did they?
like, because they talked about what he did with Mayfield and all that stuff. But he was a
Exactly.
first-year coordinator.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know
He
his
also,
resume.
He helped another quarterback. He was a quarterback's coach for another team.
I thought he came from college.
He was a quarterback's coach for a team where, now I can't remember. And he grew that quarterback also. He helped
So
him
yeah,
develop.
which they
So,
love
wish I could
hiring
remember.
those guys. All right, before we
Mayfield.
move on quickly, Harbaugh to the Chargers. Jason, did you want to take that one?
I think that's what we predicted, right? I mean, it was the best job, and he was the best candidate out there. And if I'm him, I'm going to where I have a young quarterback in place. I don't know. I mean, that's a team that's got talent.
Yeah, what's interesting
And a
is this
quarterback.
is like Herbert's last hurrah, right? If he continues on
Yeah,
the
I mean,
path,
it's
then
on
it's
him
him,
now.
right?
On
So,
him now. Absolutely.
anybody else before we move on to a recap of last week? All right,
Now,
let's
the only thing I
recap.
was telling, I'm sorry, with 1 second.
Go ahead.
There's one
No,
thing
go
I
ahead.
was telling Jason is that I thought a good job for Belichick would have been if the Jets did not decide to keep Saleh. That would have been a good job for him. Because then he and Rodgers could have had their 2-year run at it. I don't think Saleh is a great coach. I mean, probably a good defensive coach, but offensively, we'll see. But that probably would. I'm wondering whether the Jets regret that, and we'll see probably by mid-season whether they regret it.
Well, is the Jets ownership still the same as when Belichick quit after one day on the job with the Jets?
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
They sold since then because Parcells retired. They named Belichick the head coach, and then he quit the next day to go to New England. So I don't know if there's any bad blood, still.
It might be the same. That guy's had the team for a while. Woody
Johnson. Yeah, Hess owned it before. He's the one that brought Rich Kotite in, but I don't know when he died or sold it.
Might have been Hess back then.
I mean, Belichick, they're saying he's trying to bring in his own front office. Not even like his own,
a tough ask. Yeah, I mean,
I know GM who's interviewing.
I can only imagine that's why.
Let's hire him.
The main reason he didn't get the Atlanta job because they were saying, what's his blank is his name? He had tried to get Joe Gibbs, failed, and there was another like big name, like Hall of Fame coach that he was dying to get, and he couldn't get him. So he's like, Belichick now be on the market. Might have been Parcells. He's been going after Hall of Fame coaches before and hasn't brought him in, and now this is the one that he would get, and then that's why I was quite shocked when it ended up being Mars. But
well, they said he was like who wanted him, the owner wanted him. That's why they brought him back. But the front office talked. I don't know what they said, but talked them out of, I guess, bringing him. And that's why they went with Mars. So
and Dave Canales was the quarterbacks coach for the Seahawks, and he helped Geno Smith.
Yeah, he was on the Wilson too. They attribute he wasn't the QB coach all the time, but he was on the staff when Wilson came in.
And it always helps when the guy's good when you're there and he regresses when you're not there. All right, let's recap last week. We'll start in order. So Houston and Baltimore. Chalky thoughts?
I mean, it was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter, and then Baltimore blew it open. We kind of talked about it through the messages. Baltimore had a little bit of a slow start, and San Francisco ended up having the same, or much slower start, I guess. But once they got rolling, it was Baltimore rolled them over in the fourth quarter, and that was that. But they hung around, but they put together a real nice fourth quarter to make it a was it 2-score, 3-score win?
Yeah,
3, yeah,
3-5.
Jason, thoughts on that game? Yeah, I mean, exactly what Chalky said. It's rust. I mean, when we get into the 49ers game, I think it was similar. Those teams basically had 3 weeks off. So, Baltimore's first half. But you had that, and then also Houston was blitzing Lamar Jackson in the first half relentlessly, and they were blitzing him up the middle. So they were taking away his run. So, so the Ravens did make adjustments there in that game in the second half. So I think that's another part of it. But to me, the bigger part was, I think, rust. I mean, they're just a better team than Texans. And Houston never really even threatened to put points on the board. They only had the punt or kick return. Right. I mean, they weren't even deep. There wasn't like a play they missed that would have been a touchdown, and they never threatened. They just blew them out in the second half. Meeker, I believe your preseason pick for the Super Bowl was the Ravens. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is the stats won't show how much pressure Stroud was getting in that game because they didn't record a sack, but he was pressured a lot in that game, especially in the second half. But yeah, in the second half, Baltimore just kind of dominated. Lamar had 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 through the air. They ran for 229 yards. So yeah, I mean, I thought Houston might hang a little bit later in the game, but Ravens showed how dominating their defense was in the second half. They're tough. I was surprised, though. Their backs, I mean, I know they're not big names, but they weren't really picking up much yards in the first 3 quarters of the game running the ball, which in other times that threat of Lamar has helped the running backs, but they weren't very impressive. Now, they're not very good in Edwards and I don't even remember Justice Hill.
Well, they just brought in Cook, right?
Oh, right. He actually ran in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he took the ball in the fourth quarter.
That was his first week, but...
So did Lamar show, Jason, you enough that he can carry it into the KC game? And I don't want to get too in it because we'll jump into it. But, his troubles in past playoff games. Was this just like they played a better team and that was the end of the story? Or did he make a playoff lead?
He needs to show me that he could come back and become a passer that Meeker thinks he is when there's no threat of him running, and he's got to be a passer. No, there's not. When you're down 2 touchdowns with 10 minutes left in the game,
You'll still run.
you could
I think
run
you'll
as much
still
as you want. We don't care because you got to throw the ball at that point. So when he's able to prove that the reason he's completing passes is not because there's a spy on you and there's one less guy in coverage, then I'll be convinced that they could win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson.
Meeker, same question. Did he show you? I mean, you already were a believer, but enough that he can carry it through the playoffs?
In this game?
Yeah, like that playoff game, because we always said playoff Lamar. It's different than regular season Lamar.
Yeah, well, just like you said, I mean, they were just so much of a better team. I mean, the Ravens winning games isn't really always about Lamar. I mean, it's about this year more than anything. I know he's the MVP, but this year it's about their defense. And if you ain't going to score on them, then the easiest play that you can make is handing the ball off or running yourself, because you don't put yourself in any kind of strife in situations like that. He made throws when he had to make throws. He's been pretty accurate this year. He only threw 7 interceptions all year long. They just haven't really been in games where I feel like what Jason's talking about is something he has to do. Now we'll see if this week is one of those games that he has to do it. But they're normally playing from ahead. They can lean on their defense. He can grab his 90 yards in the ground and throw 65% completion, throw a couple touchdowns. I mean, they're going to win games because their defense is that good. I don't know that he has to do what you're asking him to do. Now, does that warrant him being...
Yeah, eventually.
Right, but that was the same argument in years past, and the Chargers showed they took their linebackers out and played all second D-backs, and he couldn't run. There was a couple other games where he was
Titans. I think
the Titans. Yeah, they took away the middle of the field and forced him to throw outside, and he couldn't. The Chiefs' defense is no slouch, and they blitz.
What, Kansas City you're talking about?
Kansas City. Yep.
Yeah, we'll talk about that soon. I'm just
all right.
saying
Let's jump to. All right, hold that thought. Let's jump to Chalky. Actually, you didn't get a chance. Anything about that game?
What, Baltimore?
Baltimore, Houston.
Yeah,
on the recap.
I talked about it first.
Yeah, he started.
How about the Green Bay and the Niners, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, a lot to talk about in that game. I think to start off, I think you had rust. Purdy did not play well at all in the rain. I mean, you could tell the rain was affecting him. He was dropping back and wiping his hand. I mean, you never see that. So that's something he needs to fix in the offseason for sure. He needs to either get gloves or figure something out there. But
even the D-backs slipped a couple times, didn't they? San Fran's D-backs? I think there was a few.
On their home field, there's no excuse for them not having the right cleats on. I mean, I think, Purdy struggled. I mean, here I have it written down. Purdy struggles. The Packers, I thought, dominated both lines. I mean, I thought they dominated the offensive and defensive lines in that game. I thought LaFleur outcoached Shanahan in that game. I thought Shanahan was not good, and I thought LaFleur was good. And then, Love was better than Purdy for the first 2.5 quarters, maybe, of the game, right? Yeah. San Fran lost Debo. That never helped.
That changed, Shanahan's whole offense, it looked like.
Yeah, because he's running the plays with Jennings that he would run with Debo, and it's not going to work. So, but fourth quarter, Purdy outplayed Love. I'm not as convinced on the San Fran defense as I used to be, and as people think. I think they're slightly overrated, to be honest with you.
Well, their D-backs aren't anything special.
No, I mean, if they're not getting pressure,
right?
Then, there's a problem. And not to make more excuses, but I think the Packers have turned into a pretty good team. I think they might be the second best team in the NFC now. Or top 3 anyway. I mean, if they're not. So I think they're going to be a handful next year. And I think they developed. I think Love developed. Love obviously was terrible in the fourth quarter. But and that's a whole nother thing before I end. I hear these excuses being made for Love. Oh, he's a young quarterback and he'll be better next year and all. Does everybody realize Love's 13 months older than Purdy?
Yeah, he sat on the bench for
so
3
there's no
years,
excuse
3 or
for
4
Purdy
years.
being young, but there's excuses for Love being young. So, and that being said, like I said, I think the Packers are legit. I think they're going to be good next year. But, let's not give Love a total pass. I mean, he was probably the reason they lost the game.
Chalky?
Yeah, I mean those two interceptions in the fourth quarter. I mean, one of them set up or was it the late third quarter? One set the Green Bay field goal
Yeah,
and
I think
then
late third.
yeah, because that was it. Because it said, oh well, the Shanahan, losing by 7 or more after the start of fourth quarter is broken, but instead the clock ran out in the third quarter when they're kicking a field goal, so they kicked it on the first play of the fourth quarter. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but the stat is not there anymore. But okay, so with 15:46 left, they had a 4-point, they were behind. But I mean, Green Bay played better than I expected them to, and I really thought that it looked like, especially early in the second half, I thought they could put them away, and they didn't. They let them hang around, and that's what the fourth quarter they came and took over. The defense, I mean, the 49ers are maybe the best up the middle with those linebackers. They have talent on the line, but the pass rush is not effective as it was last year. Excuse me. Last year, even with Hargrave on the line now. And, Ward is decent in the backfield, but that's been the knock on them. If there was a weakness, it was their, this year, certainly their defense compared to the offense. And I think I saw, I forget who it was, might have been Warren Sharp or somebody posted, Purdy without Debo, and as soon as Debo got hurt, I was like, because they lost the games this year, except for the Baltimore game without Debo, and like the metrics with Purdy are actually, he was like still one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league in some of the metrics without Debo, which is weird because that offense just does not run the same without him. It's like he doesn't get the ball every play, but he's really integral to what Shanahan does, just being on the field and his versatility. And the rust and him getting hurt early, that they really struggled on offense till the fourth quarter. I mean, they had a couple of big play drives, but it was like 2-3 plays. They couldn't sustain anything until that last drive. And I don't know if you saw the shot, Meeker, but the Love interception was almost identical to Brett Favre on the Vikings across the body, like everything in the championship game against the Saints when he gave that game away. So,
and was that first? It was like first down, wasn't it? First or second down when he threw the interception.
Second down.
it was second, yeah.
So it's like, what do you think? I
Yeah, I
just didn't
don't-
understand what that throw was.
I mean,
they're
but
literally like 30 yards away from field goal range. I mean, I don't know about that kicker hitting it, but
no, I don't know that either. But like, I thought their line did a decent job getting pressure, but they looked like the Eagles when they were trying to tackle McCaffrey on some of those drives. Like, just couldn't tackle him. They needed 3 guys to bring him down. I mean, he's the best running back in the league.
Yeah,
but still.
But no, they struggled early in the red zone. Right, they had 3 attempts, 2 field goals. The one questionable, it looked like he got the first. I mean, it was close, but the spot they gave him was not good to extend that drive. And that was the turnover on downs. And then they got 2 field goals. So the game stayed close. And then, like Chalky alluded to, then they had turnovers. So that close flipped to San Fran, and that's all she wrote. San Fran, to Jason's point, I mean, I got to imagine Shanahan's going to come out with a better. He didn't use McCaffrey early at all, right? The first half.
Game plan.
So,
unless he was loaded up with Debo stuff in the game.
yeah, but you have to you would think they have like.
Listen, I think he got out coached. I think he.
But that is Shanahan's knock. We said it. He's like the Andy Reid. He has a game plan. When that game plan doesn't work, he's not the best at adjusting to.
Well, how about that clock management at the end of the first half?
Well, Jason said, didn't you say something about holding the ball?
He's got some kind of metrics, which I have no idea what they are, that the team that has the ball last at the end of the half has an advantage to winning games.
Maybe because it's so easy, they get a field goal and the other team gets the ball at 45 seconds and they go right down the field and kick a field goal or something. I
don't know, but they weren't playing for a touchdown in that drive.
That was weird.
I mean, if you remember the divisional game last year against Dallas, they got a field goal at the end, but it was like, Keystone Cops trying to get guys on the field because they tried to get cute. So, like, his 2-minute management is questionable sometimes.
I have no idea what he was doing.
Meeker, tie a bell on this?
You kind of stole my thunder with what you just said. The Packers punted 1 time in this game and had 1 penalty, and they came away with 21 points. And a lot of that has to do with what you said early in the game when they had to settle for field goals and they didn't get that spot, to get the first down. And of course, everyone's going to talk to the missed field goal and the interception. Obviously, that's why they lost the game. But that's really why they lost the game. They didn't put up points when they had opportunities to put up points, and then you're giving it back to you. Basically, let the Niners in the game. You kept the Niners in the game, and Purdy did what he had to do in that last drive. Went 6 for 7, and McCaffrey runs it in, and that's the game. But when it counted, Purdy delivered. When it counted, Love choked. And whether they're both the same age or whatever, Love is a young quarterback, so he's going to have to learn from this experience. And, but that was a horrific throw. Like, I don't know what he was thinking on that play, but yeah, that was the nail in the coffin. But I think that if they would capitalize on those early drives, the game could have ended up a little different.
I just looked too. I didn't even realize they were losing at halftime. The Packers.
Yeah,
they were down 7-6.
Down
Yeah,
one,
and watching the game, you would have never, thought they were losing.
I wrote some stats down, and the 49ers actually outgained them in yards. Not by much, by like 26 yards, but when you think it was so lopsided and, how did the 49ers win the game? It's to what you guys just said. They basically just, instead of getting touchdowns, they were kicking field goals. So, but, as bad as you thought the 49ers played, I guess if you look at their stats, it wasn't that terrible. But it appeared to be, especially the first half.
He got away with 2 missed interceptions, too, which was also a big part.
So one was horrific and should have been a pick six, and there's no excuse for. The second one, because I watched an hour and 10 minutes of his quarterback review, and I don't know if Chalky watched the quarterback school on him. It's good because you'll see, like I was telling Tommy earlier, you're going to say stuff like, oh, he made this while you're watching the game that you're blaming him for. That's not his fault. But then there's also a couple plays where you're not blaming him watching the game, and it was his fault.
Right.
So, but on the second interception that should have happened, he's throwing the ball, and Jennings slips. If Jennings doesn't slip, then that ball is not almost intercepted. That's not his fault. But then there's other plays that happened that, he made the wrong read on or whatever. So I don't blame him for almost 2 interceptions.
There was that one he threw to Ayuk in, I think, the second half where it was like a slant, and he missed him by like 2 yards. He was off.
He was off because he couldn't. He can't play in the rain. That's, the other thing I'll say is he didn't have an off season. Like, he had to rehab his elbow. Like, he blew out his elbow. He didn't have an off season. So I don't know if they realized how bad he is in rain, but that's something obviously that can't continue. That's got to be fixed. Whether he's got to find the glove. Maybe his hands are too small.
Yeah, what was it? The Cleveland game that they lost was rainy, right?
He was bad in that game too. Yeah, he has. You could see him wiping his during the drop back. Like, that can't happen.
All right, let's jump to a preview quickly. First game is Kansas City and Baltimore. Baltimore's 4-point favorite, which I'll start with my pick. I don't need to give a lot of analysis. The line says Baltimore to me, and I would say Baltimore all the way if it wasn't Mahomes and Jackson. I just can't take Jackson against Mahomes until he proves he could do it, which he may, but I just can't do it. Now, maybe, like Meeker said, the defense is the reason why they get by, but give me Andy Reid, give me Mahomes, Kelsey, Taylor Swift, the whole shebang. But the line does say Baltimore. I definitely think that's a Baltimore line. I'll let you go first on this one, Meeker.
Yeah, it was the first AFC Championship game in Baltimore in 50 years. Nothing suggests to me that Kansas City should win this game other than number 15 is on the field. And it's really hard to bet against them. No one really wins betting against Patrick Mahomes. But I think this Baltimore team is really tough pretty much in every aspect of the game. KC's defense is good. Baltimore's is better. KC's rushing attack is decent. Baltimore with Lamar running is better. KC's special teams is pretty good. Baltimore has one of the best kickers in the world. Look, I think Mahomes has to have an otherworldly game to win it, and they're going to have to turn Lamar over at least one time, maybe twice to win. But I think Jackson's been really careful with the ball this year. Like I said earlier, he's only thrown 7 interceptions, and in games where, in the playoffs especially, where he has not succeeded, That has not been the case. He's fumbled. He's thrown interceptions. That's the type of mistakes that he's made, which has given him this reputation of not being a good quarterback in the playoffs. But if he's accurate, they're a tough offense to game plan for because they can play, great coverage on the receivers. And here's Lamar running for 15, 20 yards down the field. And I don't know. I mean, although KC played a very good offensive game plan last week, because we didn't talk about the Bills and Chiefs, we kind of skipped that, Bills and Chiefs last week. I don't think we can trust them like the teams that they've had in the past, especially against good defense like this. But it's not a good idea to bet against them. I think it's going to be a one-touchdown game. I'm going to go 27-20 Baltimore. And I think they just dial up a fairly safe game plan this week and stick to what they've done best, and that's just run the ball, throw when you have to, and play great defense. And I think they win.
All right, Jason?
So I was going through the stats of last week's game for the Bills and Chiefs. I found a crazy stat. Do you know the Chiefs only had 5 third downs in that game? They were 1 for 5.
They were in third down. Yeah. 5
which
third
means
down.
their offense was very efficient.
Since the Cincinnati game, their offense has been back at, they don't have the players, but Rice has emerged. They've had guys
when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they hardly ever had third down, if you remember that season. They would get first down or second down. So, I think the Chiefs have turned around their offense. Now, there is a concern, and I forget the Tunney, right?
He's out.
And Pacheco.
Is he definitely out?
He's definitely
Pacheco's out?
No, Tooney's out,
Pacheco,
the lineman.
Pacheco is questionable. He's got a toe injury.
I'm not as worried about that. I could play running back with Mahomes. So, Tunney, that's huge. That's big. If he's out, and he's definitely out, Chalky?
Yes.
Ooh.
He's out. Andrews is in. Andrews is back, too, for Baltimore.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with Tommy. It's Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. You could laugh, Meeker, but it is what it is.
It's the same thing we used to say about Brady. It's Brady versus this guy. It's Brady. You just until they can prove it.
If the Chiefs play the 49ers in the Super Bowl, I'm going to say the same thing. I can't pick against the Chiefs, but. And then I don't think there's that big of a disparity between their defenses. The Ravens have a good defense, probably the best defense, but the Chiefs is really, really good. They got a really good defense. And the kickers, the Chiefs have just as good of a kicker as Tucker at this point. Tucker's slipping a little bit. So, I'm gonna say the Chiefs win the game. I just can't. Oh, did I blip out? I'm bad.
Yeah, for a second.
I'm gonna say the Chiefs win. I'm not going to give a score, but I obviously.
I didn't give. I think it's close. I think it's a one-score game.
It's not going to be a blowout.
Either way, yeah, it's going to come down to the fourth quarter, or come down to the last drive. Something like that. Chalky, where you at?
I've gone back and forth on this a little bit. Was leaning KC for a while for the reasons you mentioned. Then it went to Baltimore, then back to KC. The 4 says Baltimore to me, and apparently this is a very much Pro versus Joe game, and Joe Public is hammering KC on the 4 from what I was reading on Twitter today. If that's accurate, I don't know.
I didn't see it on some of the other sites.
Vegas Insider, it's 50-50, and then might just been one of the books specifically. The guy was tweeting out, but he said it's Public is with the 4 at least. When it went to 4, they're on that. It's going to be rainy and windy apparently, so that makes it difficult to throw. So you obviously like Mahomes in that kind of matchup, but it could also favor Baltimore's run. I think Tooney up the middle, and Baltimore gets back Marlon Humphrey, who's their best cornerback and one of the better quarterbacks, is enough of a difference for me to take Baltimore against my better judgment and say Baltimore wins, and I guess covers the 4 or whatever. But
okay, let's move on to the last game. That's San Fran, Detroit. San Fran is minus 7.5, but it was plus 100, and Detroit was minus 120. So it's kind of 7 if you take away that juice. At least DraftKings. I don't know other things. Jason, San Fran's been your baby, so I'll let you take this.
Yeah, I think this is a bounce back game for San Francisco, especially against that defense, which is not good. The Lions' defense is bad. they're decent against the run. They're good against the run, but Purdy should pick them apart. I mean, the weather will be fine. He won't have any issues with that. So, I think I think the 49ers win kind of comfortably in this game. I just, these dome teams that come out, and I know the weather's going to be fine and everything, but they're changing surfaces, right? They're not
Yeah,
playing
the turf
on
makes
the
it
fast
different,
track. You know what I mean? So it's just different. And I think the 49ers had their wake-up call last week because I do think they were rusty on top of everything else we talked about. And I think they're going to win comfortably.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I agree. I think San Fran is the much better team. I think the same thing Jason said. They're going to have their bounce back game. Debo is supposed to play. I don't know how
Yeah, he's
healthy.
definitely playing. Yeah, he might be a decoy.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he's a
Might be a
decoy,
decoy.
but I do think you'll get a lot of McCaffrey. You alluded to that the running quarterbacks have beat Detroit, so you might see.
Oh, they can't. Yeah,
You might
I
see
bet
Purdy
that.
because
I
Purdy.
bet Purdy rushes. Yeah,
If I
do.
remember, was it the first playoff game they played last year? Purdy used his legs pretty well, and everybody was surprised. He can move a little bit. He's not a running quarterback, so I don't know how much he'll be dialed up, but that could factor in. I think McCaffrey, you'll get a heavy dose of McCaffrey. Ayuk will have a bounce back game because he didn't do much. And Detroit, I don't think they can play outside the dome. That Tampa team hung with them for a good while. And if their coach actually game plan like we thought he was going to game plan with blitzes and, they may have taken them, or if their offense was a little bit better at times. So I don't see this one close. I think this is the end of the Detroit era once Ben Johnson leaves and they don't have an offense coordinator. And, they said that he stays with Goff just like McVay would. He calls out if it's zone or man coverage, and he tells Goff before the headset goes, and then Goff calls the changes that he has to based on that. Come on, I mean it's hard to be successful when the coach is doing it. McVay did it for him, and I mean they lost in the Super Bowl, but they did get there. So I got San Fran comfortably. If anything, it's a straight backdoor, a late touchdown, but I think it might be almost a 15 to 20 point game. Chalky, what do you think?
I'm in agreement. I think the San Fran role that I thought maybe they would have had last week is in effect this week. I think those guys at the middle, those linebackers, they're going to be able to cover those running backs, and they're going to be able to blitz, run a blitz here or there, and maybe confuse Goff. And I think their offense,
that
even
center is banged up too. Pretty good.
And they're I mean, Detroit has a very, very good line, but they're banged up. And I think that the weather won't be an issue. Like Jason said, it's 70 and sunny supposedly, so it's not cold, but it's going to be perfect weather. And I think San Francisco rolls. They cover the spread, and I think it goes under. I'm thinking like a 31-17, 31-13.
What's
win.
the over under?
51.
Yeah, I figured it would be pretty high.
What
was the KC Baltimore?
44.
It's about in line. All right, Meeker, take us home on this before we move on.
I don't know. You guys think Detroit can't play outside the dome, but they have a pretty decent road record. I think with their 6-3 outside the dome.
Do you know the teams?
I didn't look at that. But San Fran's got the same record at home. That's the thing.
So Meeker gave me these rudimentary stats of who the 49ers have beaten.
That's true.
But he didn't look at the Lions. Oh, it's true. So, and let's. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm gonna ask this question to Chalky because Tom, I know I told you, and I had to educate Meeker. Chalky, do you know what the lines would be on the Super Bowl if the 49ers played the Ravens or if the 49ers played the Chiefs?
I want to say it was 3 or 4 for either one, I think.
No, well, close. So the 49ers are favored against the Ravens, even though Meeker had these rudimentary stats that point out that they haven't beaten anybody by 1.5 and 2.5 against the Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But go ahead, Meeker. Sorry.
That matters. Look, I think it's going to be a really close game. And the way the Niners played last week is a concern to me. Their defense wasn't exactly dominated, and they capitalized on mistakes. Obviously, we know that when Love made those mistakes. But Goff has been playing really well all year, basically, and the key to me is to get him off of his spot, because when he sits back there and he can survey the field, the guy can deliver the ball, and it's not a bad option when he's flipping it out to Gibbs, who's a really really good back. And I think that's a big challenge for the Niners defense this week. This is one of the best offensive lines in football in Detroit, and they have some injury concerns, like you said, with Ragnow. Defensively, the Lions are decent against the run, like you had said. So I think it really comes down to McCaffrey. If McCaffrey gets 100 or approaches 100 yards in the ground, and the Lions have to stay honest against the run, that'll give Purdy a lot of time to make his throws in this game, because the Lions' pass defense is pretty weak. They're not great. So if Debo plays a big part, if he wasn't playing, I think this would be even the Lions might even win the game. But if Debo's playing and he's not just a decoy, and because they're not as good offensively without him, the stats say so. But I think it's going to be a really close game, but I do think the Niners will pull it out in a 1-point win.
Okay. And I think one reason that line might be kind of low is because the Detroit, love around the country. Like, everybody's rooting for Detroit. I know Vegas Insider had that 50-50 as well, but I got to imagine Detroit's going to be the public play for, all
I'd like to see how the break it out is from when, like, San Fran at 7 versus 7.5, to see if going to 7.5 took more Detroit money in because they want to buy the hook, yeah.
I mean, if they move it to 7.5, that means they're not afraid of that at all.
They're just juicing it, yeah.
So, all right. I guess that we'll say goodbye to Joe Public Meeker, and we'll move to the Pegasus, which I did not say. Hey,
Joseph Meeker.
He has to take his victory lap, right? He had Detroit, and I think his over-unders was he 4-0 or 3-1? Because didn't every game go overs?
No,
one didn't.
I think
the one under I picked was the Bills and the Chiefs.
And
what did that end up?
I thought
I don't think
we were talking about just picks of games. I don't
No, I remember we mentioned about his over. But hey, he had Detroit, so give him his victory lap. But we are going to talk horses for the first time in a while since the Breeders' Cup, I believe. So Meeker, take care.
Sayonara. Have a good weekend.
Okay, like I said, we're going to talk some Pegasus World Cup. It's kind of the official kickoff to the racing season for the new year. And we get into preps. And last year we covered, I think, all the preps or most of the preps. And I think we're probably going to do it. You'll see some guests around that as well. But this one, we're going to cover the Pick 4. It's Pegasus Day down at Gulfstream. So let's jump into it. We got race 10. Mile and a 16th on the turf for fillies and mares. Chalky.
So I'm going to try to beat the morning line favorite here. The 4-star Fortress was the morning line favorite. Ran a huge number on the Churchill Goofy Grass last time out. I'm going to use 4 horses here to try to do that. The 6, Ruby Nell. Mandela doesn't chip east, especially for races like this, if he doesn't have a horse he thinks can win, so I'm going to use her. Fluffy Socks, Chad Brown. Brown got his first win in the meet finally earlier today, so maybe he'll get a little bit of a roll going. I'm going to use the 8, Queen Goddess. She's been out of form, but she won this race last year, so maybe she just likes the track, hopefully. And then the 9, Didia, with Jose Ortiz. So 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, Jason?
I'm only going to go too deep here. I do like Chalky 6, Ruby Nell. I heard a stat where Mandela hasn't shipped to Gulfstream since 2001 or something like that.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's just something crazy like that. So that's a red flag there. She might be the speed of the speed in the race, but I can't throw out the 4 Star Fortress. That horse showed such a great turn of foot in the last race. And
I mean, 10
really
lengths on a turf race is insane.
Yeah, and I really like Sherry DeVoe. I think she improves horses. So she got that horse. She improved her. I guess it's a her in the last race. I'm not convinced. I mean, she might not run as big, but there is some speed in the race, and she's going to get speed to run into. So I'm not throwing her out. So I guess Ruby Nell will be my top choice, but I will use Star Fortress to 4.
Yeah, this is one where you want to pay attention to scratches because there's some speed in the race, and if speed, does scratch, it bumps up Ruby Nell. If it doesn't, that helps Star Fortress, who looks like a closer. A lot of times in these Euros, too, when they come to America and they run that big, they're usually the real deal. So we'll see. Again, I didn't really cap. I just kind of gave it a breather, so I'm going to let you guys take it. For this episode, I'll be more prepared for future episodes. But let's move to race 11. The Fred Hopper. If I remember, this was the only race last year that maybe got a price because it was pretty chalky. I think Pegasus Day, outside of I guess the big race. But I thought this one had a price. Could be wrong. Jason, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean for this year, I don't see a price winning. I think it's Hijazi to 1. I just see him going gate to wire. I don't have as I know Baffert isn't crazy about the rail, but I don't have as much of a problem because his horses they just quarter horse out of the gate. It's rare that his horses get stuck in the gate, so that horse is going to get
and
out.
It's the shoot too because it's a mile, so he has some time before he hits that turn.
Yeah, it's Pratt. I just think Pratt gets the lead with this horse. He's a $3.5 million horse, better than these other horses. I think he just gets the lead and keeps going. So I'm going to single the 1 Hijazi, chalk.
Yeah, and he was a horse that was like you said 3.5. He was favorite in every race, and now he seemed to find his form late in the year, and he lost to another Baffert in that last race. So he looks like a big standout, chalky. Mm-hmm.
Not to jump too far ahead, but I am against any horse shipping in from Baffert on this card. So I have 2 horses. This will be your second and third choice.
Do you have a reason before we move on?
His limited success since the whole scandals have come on the West Coast pretty much, and his shipping in the last year or two hasn't been. And even he couldn't even win a Breeders' Cup against some of the better horses when they went to the West Coast. So
yeah, but I feel like Gulfstream is the Wild West when it comes to
he's had big days here before. He's won the main event 2 times, but it was prior to all that. So look, $3.5 million. Yeah, he's got the best numbers. True, but I'm gonna go with the 3 Steel Sunshine. I don't like the price as much, but the horse has won at Gulfstream at the distance and has won otherwise at that distance too. And then the 8 Accreditive with Brown. I think those are the 2 best horses that are not the 1. So if I'm against the 1, those are the 2 I'm going to use.
I looked at that 8. I don't know. I just think he burns money, that horse. And then Brown's been bad.
Yeah, what's the reason for his no Gulfstream success so far? He's usually already dominating this meet.
Yeah, I don't know.
That story we heard has some kind of something going on with
I
that.
think he had his first winner today at 8-1, I think, of the meet. But it has not. He's been over whatever
26 he was.
It's over. It was over 26 before it hit.
If he gets hot, this is when you're going to get prices because people are going to start, see that. But definitely weird. But he's not a dirt trainer anyway. I'm going to take
really isn't.
Baffert over him.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I think last year it was a horse that won on the lead. It was a big price.
I tried to look up
Kershaw, maybe.
Oh, Kershaw. Yeah.
I feel like could be wrong, but Jimmy will probably check it. But the mile at Gulfstream is usually pretty speed favoring, if I believe so. That would
Every
also
race is speed at
that's
Gulfstream,
true.
really.
All right, let's move to this is the big turf race, right? Yeah, it's a mile race. Some names that have been floating around.
Isn't it mile and 1/8?
Mile and 1/8, yeah. Some turf names that have been floating around for a while. Some big ones from last year. You'll know most of the names in this race. Where it's Chalky's turn, another morning line favorite.
So for the record,
price.
last year's winner, the Fred Hooper, was endorsed. So I believe was the Charge It was the favorite, but
I might be thinking
we were
a year
against,
prior.
we were very much against endorse. I don't think I ever.
That was but he was like a trainer change or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And it was shady.
This is my single with the chalk. I'll go with Warm Heart. O'Brien's coming back. Usually come back this early in the season with the horses. It's got more coming over, and he lost this horse lost the Filly Mare Turf at the Breeders' Cup by a neck. And if he's bringing it over here, I'm going to take it seriously. So that's going to be my single in the sequence.
Okay, Jason.
Yeah, I'm going 3 deep in this race. I think the 3 Integration and the 9 Warm Heart are obviously the best horses in the race, and you got to use both of them. I would lean Integration as my top pick, but I don't see a ton of speed in this race, and I thought the 11 Main Event looked like could be lone speed.
Yeah, when I was giving it a quick view, that's what popped to me was there was not a lot of
Right?
speed in the race.
And it's Castellano. I'm
Yeah,
getting
you're
Nick
confusing the-
Castellanos
yeah.
confused. Who ran his butt off or rode his butt off last year. So I'm not throwing that horse out. I'm throwing that horse in. So I'm going to use the 3.
He likes the
Integration.
Gulfstream turf too.
Yeah,
That's a good. Yeah.
9 Warm Heart and the 11 Main Event.
Yeah, I think similar to the first turf race, this is if the horse is, on paper, just a better turf horse, outside of trouble, he probably wins in Warm Heart. If not, then yeah, it's pretty wide open. All right, let's move to the Pegasus World Cup. It's a mile and 1/8. It's $3 million. I think at the inception it was 12 million or whatever crazy number it was.
They no longer charge the horses $1 million to get into the race, so there's no entry fee. So that's why
Yeah,
the
you had to,
purse,
put up your own.
significantly dropped.
Last year was, I think, kind of not the favorite, right?
The horse that died.
The horse that died, yeah. Can't think of it now. Poor thing.
Art Collector.
Art Collector, yes.
Oh, yeah, he ran big race and then I don't think really followed up. All right, Jason, your turn to go first.
Yeah, so like we mentioned, it's Gulfstream, so I'm picking horses that are going to be close up front. My top pick is going to be the 8 First Mission, but it's Cox. The horse is lightly raced. He's ran well, and in the Clark, which is his last race, and then he's got a layoff since then. I think he should sit a nice trip because there is speed in this race. So he's one that'll be close, but he's not going to be on the lead. I'm going to pick him as my top choice, but I'm spreading. I have the same idea as Chalky in this race. I'm against the Baffert horse.
National Treasure.
Yeah, I'm against him. I'm actually gonna throw in this Hoist the Gold, the 4. I mean, he ran a huge race last time. I know he's stretching out, but he ran a -4 on the sheets. So he probably is going to regress a little, but he could regress to a -2 and still win this race if he could get the distance. And it's Gulfstream. Maybe he could stay up there if and one of the reasons I'm against National Treasure is he's never won on the lead, and this horse is probably getting the lead, Hoist the Gold. So, and if he isn't, he's really going to use National Treasure to get the lead. So, I'm going to say that maybe they sit off with National Treasure and let Hoist the Gold get the lead, and maybe he just keeps going. So I'm using him. I'm also going to use the 9, and this is a sheet play. If you look at his sheets, he's coming off 2. Chalky's laughing. He's coming off back-to-back 2s, so he might be ready to jump up in this race. And he's another one that shouldn't be too far off the lead. He should be, in a stalking position. So I'm going to throw him in as a price. And I know he's got a bad post, but Pippi Longstocking, the 12, it's Gaffalione. Gaffalione knows Gulfstream. I think Gaffalione knows he's got to get him over quick. Now, he might have to use too much for him to do that, but I believe in Gaffalione at Gulfstream. So I'm also going to use the 12. And again, so I'm 4 deep, and I'm against National Treasure.
Okay. Chalky?
It might not be as bad as I thought for Jason because he added a horse there, but I'm using 3 deep, and I'm using the 4, the 8, and the 9. The one, the 4, I mean, his number's crazy, and it's almost weird talking about a Dallas Stewart horse that runs on the lead because that's just not the style of horse he usually ever puts out. And he's only gone 2 turns, I think, once, but he's bred for it. I mean, he's a mine shaft out of a Tappet mare, so you figure they would have tried it at some point, so maybe the horse just doesn't want it, and that's why they're not doing it. But he's so much good speed up front that you got to respect it. First mission, I was originally not going to use him, but looking at the sheets, it was his best race on both Buyer and the sheets. So I thought, well, maybe he is going into form. And then the 9, ever since the 9 has to take a step forward still, but ever since Pletcher got the horse from Cox, he's improved every single race on both the thoroughgraphs and on the Buyer. And if he goes up another 2 or 3 points, you're looking at 104, and that could easily win this race. So those are my 3 horses here.
Yeah, I mean, First Mission was that horse that was on the trail with Cox's other, I forget the name, and he got hurt. And now, just looking quickly, he had a big layoff. He came back. He ran 2 best races, Buyer-wise, and now I guess the one prior. But his races without Lasix are huge. He should sit right off. I mean, he looks like he's going to be. He might end up being the favorite over National Treasure.
Yeah,
I know Baffert usually takes a lot in this race, but
And it's Cox. I mean, Cox, you got to.
yeah, I mean, he's just
wins races.
and my 4th horse would have been Skippy Longstocking, but the Post and Safi's been quite cold recently, so that's what kept me off of that. Because that's his home course, so if he's going cold there, it's not the same thing as Brown.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, First Mission's only knock would be, and I remember that from the trail, was the distance. But he ran lights out, mile and 1/8. He did lose, but he ran well last race, so looking pretty good. All right, do you guys have a pick 4 to give out? All right,
I do.
Jason, go ahead.
Jeez. Yeah. So I mean, it's basically what I said. I'll do it for $1. So race 10 is 4-6. Race 11 is the 1. Race 12 is 3-9-11, and race 13 is 4-8-9-12. For $1, it's $24.
Which race do you think had the best shot to get, a price, maybe even a double-digit price? Usually the turf races, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just think those 2 horses are so much better than the other horses in that race.
But they're going to be short prices, which also means if they don't win the turf races, the winner might be bigger price.
I'm going to actually go with the Classic. I think if this Hoist the Gold gets the lead, he could keep going. Maybe he's 10 or 12 to 1. Because I mean, First Mission and National Treasure are no. They're no.
Yeah, there
shakes.
wasn't.
I mean,
there was no unless somebody really improves. There wasn't whatever the horses were in the past. The Baffords from,
nothing
Dubai
special.
or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Chalky pick 4, and then same question.
Yeah, so pick 4, caveman style. This will be a $24 play for $1 as well. So first leg 6, 7, 8, 9. Second leg is 3, 8. Third leg is single to 9, and then the last leg 4, 8, 9. And I would agree with Jason as far as which race could be the bomb, because I think that's the only one I have double-digit prices in here. I mean, that first leg in the turf.
The Gulfstream morning lines are a little suspicious, though.
Well,
so
I mean, we like the horse that won the turf last year at like 12 to 1, and he went off at like 3.8 to 1 as like short second choice. But yeah, so those could definitely be off. But the ones that I did pick against the favorite in the first turf race, they're all middle prices. So that's like 7 to 2 through 8 to 1, and I think the Hoist the Gold could be double digits, and I think the Pletcher one could drift up the double digits in the Classic at the end. So I would say that one has a better chance.
Okay. The horse I was thinking of was Nick's Go too. The one I was wearing the favorite. All right, that is our first horse racing conversation of 2024. But more to come as the Derby ramps up and the prep races ramp up. Episode 91. Next week, it will be footballless, so we're going to find something to talk about. But then we got the Super Bowl. So episode 91, Broad Street Hustle.